Hello everyone. I hope you guys can see my screen. Okay, fine. So as we know, today is our session number 16, and what we are going to do, as we have covered most of the topics of this session, so what we will do is we will mostly go through a kind of revision of our previous topics, and one of the major topics, which is the input and output, that we will cover. Okay, if you guys have any doubts in input and output, so you guys can ask me either in the ping or by unmuting yourself. All right, so let's start our short session for today, which is for events basically. All right, so first of all, what we will do, we will see the example of input and output, which we have already done in our session number 8. So this will be a kind of revision for this, and then we will look at events and event emitter. Okay, so that's the basically our main focus on these topics. If you guys have any doubts, then you can ask me. Okay, okay, let's jump into the code directly and see what is happening where. Okay, so what do we have for our input and output, right? So what I told, there are two decorators, @input and @output. What are these decorators? These are property decorators because you apply them on the property. Okay, and how they help us? They help us by for making a communication channel among the components, right? They help us in creating a communication channel or setting up a communication channel among the components. Okay, so what do we have in our application? We have one app component, and inside this we have a header component, right? So our app component, and then we have a header component. Now what do we want? We want a communication channel. We want to communicate to app component to a header component, also the other way, header component to app component as well, right? So for that, what do we need? We need one central point or one central communication which will act like a bridge, right? Which will act like a bridge which will allow us to communicate between these two components. Okay, so input and output decorators, these decorators will help us to achieve this. Okay, under this only we will be covering the events and event emitter, basically for creating the custom events. If you guys remember that we have created one of the custom events in our session number 8. The same we are going to discuss today as well. All right, so let's see from here. What do we have? We have a HTML file, first of all, app.component.html, right? Where our header component is present, and from here we will be basically doing the bindings. Okay, so first of all, what we want to communicate one object from app component to header component. Okay, so this is our app component .ts file. from which I want to send this object. What is the object? My name is the object. Okay. Is it possible to send any other data type? Yes, it is possible. You can send anything you want, any data type. Okay. Since object is the, you can say, the most complex one and most generic one. So that is why we take the example of object. Since you can send an object, you can send anything as well. Okay. It can be a string. It can be a boolean, a number, a tuple, array, or object. Okay. Let's see now. We have the object whose name is my name. Now this object you want to send it to header component. For that, what we will do inside our app header, what we do, we did one property binding of name, and to this I have passed my name. What is this my name? My name is nothing but this object. After that, what I have done, I have written like this name. What is this name? This name is nothing but a binding, right? And what is this binding? Is this name a default attribute of HTML or our app header? No, right? This is a kind of custom attribute or custom attribute binding. All right. So this name has to be present somewhere, right? So where it will be? It will be inside our header component. Let's see inside our header component file here. Here what we do, we create a property, local property in which I will be storing the property coming from this object, right? So what I did, I created by writing this. Okay, I can just remove this first. I just created a name property. Okay, now to store that name which is coming from the app component, I have to use one decorator. What is that decorator name? It is the @input. And to use this, you have to import first, right? So on the top, you can see I have imported this input decorator from Angular/core library. Okay. After that, I have given the name of this, right? Since I am giving a parameter to @input, it means input is a parameterized decorator. It can take a parameter as well, right? If you remember in our one of the sessions in very starting, we talked about the parameterized and non-parameterized decorators. Okay, so for now that's not our concern. Our concern is that I am getting this name inside the name property. Okay, after that, what I did, now I want to know whether that property, that object has reached this component or not, right? You have to know that. For that, what you will do, you cannot print directly here. You cannot print a console log statement. It has to be inside a function. So what I did, I just created one dummy function. Inside the dummy function, I'm just printing it. Console.log of this.name. Okay. Now I have to call this function. This dummy function has to be called, right? So for that, I created one HTML button. On click of that HTML button, I will be calling this function dummy function. Okay, let's see this. Where is it? There is a button present here. Okay, on click of this. So what is it? It is a function binding. How you do function binding? By using the parenthesis and then equal to name of the function. All right. So on click of this button, what will happen? Dummy function will be called, and dummy function is what it is doing. It is just printing the name property. Okay. Let's see this code running. Okay. Forget about the other UI. Just look at this dummy button. This dummy button is what? Our same dummy button which we created. So once I will click on this, you will see in the console, you can see object is printed, which is having first name and last name. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming? It is coming from app component. This one. Okay. So what we did one kind of interaction between app component to header component. So our app component is now able to interact with the header component by sending some values to it. Okay. All right. Now we have to see for the back and forth communication, right? Two-way. So first one, in the one direction we have done. Now what do we want? We want to communicate something back from header component to app component. Let's see from where I can do this. For that, I have to look into my header component, right? From here, I want to communicate something back. For that, what do we have? We have one @output decorator. Okay, @output. So what it does, it basically sets a property that can be used to communicate back to app component. Okay, so let's first look at this page where we have one custom click event, right? So it's just like click event, or there are a lot of events, right? HTML events, click, hover, all those are events only, right? Submitting a form. So similar to that, what do? We created one custom event. We can create an event of our own as well, just like HTML click. What is it? It is an event. If you click on something, then that click event is fired. It is triggered. Similarly, what we did, we created one custom click event. Okay. So till now, I haven't done anything to make it an event actually, but I just written like this, that custom click, and if this event happens, that means I am binding it to a function. If this event occurs, then call this function from the app component. Okay, so this event will be fired from header component. Let's see here. And what I did, I have written custom click equals new event emitter, right? So event emitter is a class which gives you object of a event emitter. Okay, so once you do like this, once you created this object, now this object is nothing but this can be emitted. This is an event now which you can emit. Okay, so this event emitter is, again, you have to import from Angular/core. Okay, after you have done that, custom click here, what you can do is you can now trigger that event. Custom click event can be triggered. Okay, and how you trigger this event? By writing this dot custom click dot emit. So dot emit is a function on a event emitter. Okay, so till this point of time, line number 27, you have just created an object of event emitter. You haven't done anything else. Okay, the actual part, the triggering part, from where it is actually triggered, that is done by using dot emit function. Okay, so line number 36 is the actual triggering point of your event. All right. So what I did inside the logout function, I am just passing some user info, this dot user info. Okay, and inside user info, I created an is logged out property which is initially false, and once this logout is clicked, I am setting it to true. Okay, so I'm just trying to mock a scenario that inside your header you are having a logout button. Okay, and inside that logout button, on click of that logout button, you want to communicate this to your app component. Okay, you want to communicate this to app component that user has clicked log out. Now if you have to do something, app component can do, right? So that is what I am just mocking it, and I am sending the information back, this dot user info, to my emit function. Okay, so this information will be catch inside our this function, get information from header component, right? It is getting from here on custom click. All right, so once this emit function is called, it will emit this, and once it is emitted, then this function will get called, get info from header component, and it is present here. What it is taking? It is taking one parameter. Okay, and this parameter is nothing but this information which we send via emit function, this dot user info. Okay, so this dot user info will send the is log out, or if it is not logged out, then what I'm doing, I'm just checking whether the property is logged out is true or not. If it is true, then you have, I'm just giving an alert that you are successfully logged out. Thanks for using, come back again. And if you log out is not successful, that means if it is false, that means user has not logged out. Then I'm just giving an alert, you are still logged in, keep the work going. Okay, let's save this and I will see again here. Okay, so this is our logout button. Once I click on this, you can see this, you are successfully logged out. Thanks for using, come back again. The same message is coming in the alert. Okay, if I try to send false from here, that means false like this.
Can't we use input to communicate between header and the app? Header to the
No,
app?
no. Actually, this is the communication back. Back communication as in app component is a parent and header is its child.
Okay.
Okay, so from
If there is any child for header, then it can communicate through input.
exactly.
Okay. But the same, what happens if we use same input decorator and send the value to?
It will not work.
Okay.
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 Yeah. Now let's say I am sending the false. That means the user is not logged out. Okay. So let's see. I refresh here, and once I click on logout button, you can see you are still logged in. Keep the work going. Okay. So our both the scenarios are met. First one was the when user is not logged out. Second one when user is logged out. All right. So this is about the our input and output and event emitter. Okay. So what you will see that sometimes, or in some tutorial, if you go online, you will see that there was a function called as next. Okay. Instead of emit, there was a function called as next. Okay. Let's see this. I save it and I just go here. Now once I click on logout, you can see it is still working. The next is still working. However, Angular has deprecated this function actually. Okay, so this next function they are not going to use now because they have come up with this replacement of emit. Okay, so maybe in next version or maybe sometime in sooner, next function will not be there. All right, so it's better that you use emit function. All right, yeah. Okay, so now what we can do is, as we have already covered the revision of this, if you guys want to know anything, you can just let me know. If you guys have any questions in this. Any questions? No questions? Okay. So Atul is asking to repeat the process in brief. Yes, sure. So basically, what do we want to achieve? You got that? That we want to achieve the communication among two components, right? So what are those two components? First is app, second is header. Then what we do? We have to set up one communication channel. To achieve that, two decorators will help us. Those are @input and @output. @input for the first way around, app to header, and @output the other way, header to app. Okay, so I just created one object. Okay, so this is my scenario that I created object. Tomorrow you might have to send anything. Okay, it might be just a information, it might be just a notification. Okay, so I'm just taking an example of an object. Let's suppose you want to send this object to header component. Okay, you created this object in your component.ts file. Inside a header component, you will write @input. Okay, here you will be giving the name of your property which you have used here, and then you will create an alias for this. Alias means the to store the information. To store the information which is coming from the input, store it here. Okay, and then I just printed it. Okay, you might have to do some modification on this name, right? You just got one copy of it. After that, you can just use it. You want to edit it, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. It's totally up to you. I'm just printing it. Okay, now comes the s- second way of communication. That means from header to the app. Okay, from header to app means what you need to do. You need to use @output decorator. So using @output, you have to first create one event, custom event. Okay, I just given it a name, custom click, and it is of type what? It is a event emitter object. Okay, this event emitter is again a class which you have to import on the top, like event emitter from Angular/core. Okay, so once you got this object event emitter, it is having a function called as emit. Emit is nothing but a function which you have to call in order to execute that, right? So just like a button click, your browser knows that once you click a button, its click event has to be called. Okay, but our browser does not know that custom click is also a click event. It is also an event. It has to be called sometime, right? So browser doesn't know that. What we have to do, we have to call it, or we have to trigger it on according to our need. So what I did, I just triggered this custom click on call of logout function. This logout function I am calling on click of logout button. Inside this, I am just emitting it. Once the one event emitter is emitted, so that means dot emit function is called on it. What it does, it will basically call the function which is associated to this event. Okay, so which is the function associated with this event? It is written here, get info from header, right? So this function will be called once I will click on this. So click on this means once I will emit this custom click. Okay, And what I'm doing inside that, simply I am just doing a simple logic of if else according to the object properties. If it is having a property called as is logged in, then is logged out. Then what I am doing, I am just giving an alert message. If it is true, then one alert message. If it is false, then another alert message. You might tomorrow, you might have some other data, you might have some other needs, you might have some other functionality to perform. Okay, so this is just an example that how you can do and what can be a scenario. It is along with the scenario as well of the logout. Okay, yeah, so this is about the @input, @output, and event emitters. Okay, any other doubts? No doubts? Okay, if not, then what we do, uh, maybe I can tell you something else as well. Like, I think we have covered almost all of the topics already. We covered this as well, template URL and template property. We covered style URLs and styles as well. We covered selectors, we covered providers. Yes, we covered these stuff as well. Okay, all right. Um, okay, then what we will do, I think in our next session, what we have is we have the migration from Angular 1 to Angular 2, that what are the differences and what is the actually, you can say, how we can migrate from Angular 1 to Angular 2, not exactly via code, but what are the possible uh, what are the possible replacements, right? So just like in Angular 1 we were having controller, Angular 2 we have component. So all that stuff we will compare in our next session.
Can you tell, like using all the services and then decorators, using all some example which can give a better idea, kind like in one example using services, and then when do we use services, when do we use?
Yes, so services are nothing but you will be using services whenever you are having a scenario where you have to call some logic into more than one component, the same logic into more than one component. Let's suppose a calculator is there, right? You are creating an application where you have to perform some computation. Okay, and the calculator is something which you have to use at several points of time. So what you will do, you will write the calculator functions not into your components. Rather than writing into the components, you will be writing into a service. Maybe you can create a calculator service and then you just inject it and use it. Okay, so usage of a service is not just confined, or it is not just a smaller thing. No, it has a wide area to be used. Okay, so it is just a point. It is just one central area where you can write your logic and just call it on the demand basis. Okay, you can just relate it to your daily life, what all services we use.
Okay.
Okay, if we go to a, let's suppose, let we travel, right? We travel by bus. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to go from one place to another place, right? So there are several ways of doing it. One is that you can mm, own a bus, you can purchase a bus, and you can just go by your own bus. Okay, but purchasing a bus is not a good idea, right? So instead of purchasing a bus, what you do, you just use the bus service, right? You just pay for what you use. You have to travel from point A to point B. What you do, you just board a bus, pay for it, use the service of the bus, and then you get down the at your stop, right? So that is the actually concept of service.
Okay.
Somebody is providing a service and you are using it.
Okay. And injectable?
Injectable is nothing but injectable is a decorator which makes a class a service, right? You use at the rate injectable to create
Okay.
a service. It is a decorator only. Okay, I got a question in chat as well. Is it possible to communication other than app component between child components? Okay, if you want to communicate uh, in between the components means uh, like the siblings, right? So if they are siblings, then what you have to do, you have to again use a service only. Okay, so you are having one component and there is another component. Okay, in that case what you will do, you will basically make use of a service. All right, so one component will be feeding some data to the service, and or you can say saving a data to the service, and other component will be reading that. Okay, yeah.
Can't we use this output decorator for communicating between the siblings?
No. Okay, so these are events, right? So these are kind of events which you use for the communication.
One sibling can actually emit the event, the other can actually listen to that event, right? That cannot happen.
uh, that I haven't tried. Mm, for that what I can do is, let's try this among the siblings. So what we can do is we can just create one. Let's see, but how will we be able to call multiple components? Let's see, we can give it a try. So what I do, I create one uh, header, or what is it, let's create one ng generate another component, let's suppose ng generate component, and let's suppose about, and let's see what will happen. It will create another component, four files, css, ts, html, and spec. Okay, we got the component. And what we do, let's look into your app module. We got this, yes. Now how we will make them siblings? By putting it into the app.component.html. Okay, so about component.ts file, app hyphen about. So you have to write app hyphen about here. Okay, so let's try this custom click. Okay, but the again the problem is this function right? So how will you write this function now? In our earlier case, when it was header, right? Header and app having a parent-child relationship. So this function was accessible inside the app component. But if you mention here inside app hyphen about, how will you be able to access that? A function of other component, let's suppose app hyphen header is having a function. Okay, let's suppose I write the same thing. Okay, then how will it get to know that this function has to be inside app hyphen header? I don't see a possibility here, because in our earlier case it was a parent-child relationship, but here they are at the same level. Okay, it is possible that about and header can communicate both to the app, and app can communicate to these both, but how will they communicate with each other? Because they are at the same level, their functions cannot be accessed, and even they are not in the same scope. Okay, so child has the access to its parent functions of its parent component, but a sibling does not have the access. Okay, so that is why this communication cannot happen like this using @output.
Okay.
And in general, what I have seen that I haven't come across a scenario where you need to communicate among the siblings. We generally communicate either from parent to child or to more than one child. Okay, so that is the scenario which can happen, like one parent can communicate to multiple childs, and children can communicate back, multiple children can communicate back to a parent. Among the siblings, it's a rare scenario. Okay, so I'll just remove this one as we don't need it. All right, any other doubts? If not, then what we'll do, we'll stop here, and then we'll meet again on Monday, where we will start with the migrating from Angular 1 to Angular 2. After that, we have one session on testing. Yes, and after that we have two more sessions. We'll see. All right. So majorly we have covered the Angular, only testing and migration, that is a more of a theory that is left. Okay. And in last, what we have 4 sessions for the project. Okay. We'll see that how we'll proceed from there on. Okay. Okay, then I just stop sharing my screen, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Bye. Have a good night.